Imagine a scenario where every time you try to move forward, a small voice inside you whispers reasons why you shouldn't even try. Is this voice familiar to you? Does it stop you from reaching what you truly desire in life? Today, we're going to explore the 5 main excuses that often imprison us and prevent us from achieving our dreams. And most importantly, we will discover how we can overcome these excuses and finally live the life we've always wanted. I don't have time. The first excuse, and perhaps the most common of all, is, I don't have time. How many times have you caught yourself saying that? The day only has 24 hours, and it seems like it's never enough to get everything done. But the truth is, we all have the same amount of time. The difference between those who achieve their goals and those who don't is how each of us chooses to use that time. Let's dive into the story of Lucas, a student with big dreams. Since he was a child, Lucas dreamed of becoming a successful entrepreneur. He saw his parents working hard, struggling to support the family, and he vowed that one day he would provide a better life for them. He had a brilliant idea for a business that he believed would change his life and his family's. However, every day after coming home from school, he found himself consumed by daily tasks. There were homework, studies, and family obligations. By the end of the day, Lucas felt exhausted, and the idea of dedicating time to his dream seemed impossible. He would always tell himself, I don't have time for this right now. Maybe tomorrow. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and Lucas's dream remained untouched, sitting in a drawer. He watched his peers move ahead, achieving small successes, while he felt like he was falling behind. A feeling of frustration began to grow inside him. Lucas knew he was capable. He knew he had something special, but time seemed to be his biggest enemy. One day during a class, Lucas's teacher said something that changed his perspective forever. The teacher spoke about how everyone in the room had the exact same 24 hours in the day, but how they used those hours was what separated success from failure. Lucas left that class with a new sense of determination. He began to observe how he spent his time. He started keeping a journal of his daily activities and was surprised to discover how many hours he wasted on trivial activities, like browsing social media, watching purposeless videos, or simply procrastinating. Lucas then made a decision that would change his life. He decided to wake up 1 hour earlier every day. That first hour of the day would be dedicated solely to his dream. At first, it was difficult. Waking up early when everyone else was still asleep required discipline. But Lucas knew that if he didn't do it, his dream would never become a reality. And so, day after day, he began working on his business idea. Initially, progress was slow but consistent. He started seeing results. Small advances began to add up. What once seemed impossible was now becoming increasingly achievable. In 6 months, Lucas had transformed his idea into a prototype. He was closer to his dream than he had ever been. And all of this happened because he decided to stop using the excuse of not having time and started making time work in his favor. Additional reflection. Lucas's story teaches us that time isn't the problem, but rather how we manage it. Often, we let ourselves be carried away by the demands of daily life and end up putting our dreams on hold. But what would happen if we made our dreams a priority? What if we dedicated just 1 hour a day to what truly matters to us? How could our lives change? Time is the most valuable resource we have, and how we choose to use it determines our future. I don't have resources. The second excuse that often holds us back is, I don't have resources. Maybe you want to start a business but don't have capital. Maybe you want to study abroad but don't have money. The lack of resources seems like an insurmountable obstacle. But is it really? Let's meet Anna, a young woman passionate about photography. Since she was little, Anna saw the world in a unique way. She loved capturing moments, whether in her mind or with small disposable cameras she received as gifts. As the years passed, her passion for photography only grew. and she began to dream of opening her own gallery where she could display her artwork to the world. But there was one big problem. Anna didn't have the money to buy a professional camera, let alone to open a gallery. She came from a humble family where every penny was counted, and the idea of spending money on something that wasn't considered essential seemed unthinkable. Anna spent years believing that her dream would never come true. She saw other photographers with expensive equipment and luxurious galleries and thought she would never reach that level. But something inside Anna never let her give up completely. She decided to start doing what she could with what she had. Using an old cell phone with a basic camera, Anna began walking through the streets of her city, capturing the beauty in simple things: the soft morning light, a child's smile, the vibrant colors of an open market. She started posting these photos on social media without high expectations. To her surprise, her photos began to attract people's attention. Anna had a natural talent for capturing the essence of moments, and this didn't go unnoticed. Soon, she was invited to photograph small events and birthdays. The money she earned from these events wasn't much, but Anna saved every penny. Over time, she managed to save enough to buy a semi-professional camera. This allowed her to elevate the quality of her work, and her photos became even more impressive. Gradually, Anna built a reputation in her city. She began receiving invitations to smaller exhibitions and won awards in photography contests. Each small success brought her closer to her dream of owning her own gallery. After years of hard work and determination, Anna finally managed to open her gallery, a cozy space where she showcased her work and inspired other young photographers. Additional reflection. Anna's story teaches us that resources, while important, are not the only path to success. Creativity and determination can overcome a lack of resources. When you truly desire something, you find ways to start, even if it's in a humble way. Anna's story reminds us that it's possible to start small, but with dedication and perseverance, great things can be achieved. I'm not good enough. The third excuse, and perhaps the most devastating of all, is I'm not good enough. How many times have you caught yourself comparing yourself to others and thinking you'll never be able to achieve what they have? That feeling of inadequacy can be paralyzing. Now let's meet Pedro, a young man with a seemingly simple dream, but one filled with emotional complexity. Pedro always loved writing. Since he was a child, he created stories in his mind and wrote them down in old notebooks. His characters and fictional worlds were his escape from a reality that was often difficult. However, as Pedro grew older, he began to doubt his talent. He read books by great authors, and his own words seemed insignificant in comparison. I'll never be as good as they are, he thought. And so, his stories, which had once been his passion, began to accumulate in a drawer, forgotten and untouched. Pedro went to university, studied something more practical as he was advised, and pursued a career he didn't love. But his passion for writing never went away. It was there, silent, waiting for an opportunity to manifest itself. Pedro continued writing sporadically, but he never showed his work to anyone. He was afraid of judgment, afraid that others would confirm what he feared, that he wasn't good enough. Until one day, in a moment of courage, Pedro decided to share one of his stories with a close group of friends. He expected criticism, perhaps even mockery, but to his surprise, his friends were impressed. They praised his creativity and the depth of his characters. That small dose of validation was what Pedro needed to keep going. He started attending writing workshops, reading more about literary techniques, and dedicating himself to his craft with more seriousness. Over time, Pedro realized that his writing was improving. He learned to accept constructive criticism and to see feedback as a tool for growth, not as an attack on his self-esteem. He finally gathered the courage to submit one of his manuscripts to an independent publisher. To his surprise, the manuscript was accepted and published. Pedro was over the moon. His book, although not a bestseller, was well received by a loyal audience who appreciated his stories. Additional reflection. Pedro's story teaches us that no one is born being the best. We all start somewhere, and it is continuous practice and the desire to improve that lead us to success. The belief that you're not good enough is an excuse that only serves to keep you where you are. Self-sabotage is one of the greatest enemies of progress. When you compare your beginning to someone else's middle, you put yourself at an unfair disadvantage. We all have unique potential, and the only way to discover it is to keep trying, failing, learning, and improving. It's not the right time. Another common excuse is, it's not the right time. How many times have you waited for the perfect moment to start something? The truth is, the perfect moment never arrives. There is always something going on in life that seems like a valid reason to postpone our dreams. Let's meet Laura, a woman who always dreamed of opening her own bakery. Laura always had a passion for baking. Since she was little, she helped her grandmother in the kitchen, learning the family's traditional recipes and creating new variations. However, opening a bakery seemed like a distant dream. There was always something holding her back. First, financial instability, then the small children who demanded all her attention. Each year that passed, Laura told herself, now is not the right time. The years went by, and Laura continued working in a job she didn't like, while her dream of owning a bakery seemed further and further away. She watched other entrepreneurs start businesses and felt a pang of regret for not having started earlier. But instead of acting, Laura continued waiting for the perfect moment. She wanted everything to be in order. Her finances stable, her children grown, the market favorable. One day, Laura received devastating news. The company where she worked was closing and she would be laid off. Suddenly, all the security she had built collapsed. She found herself without a job, without an income, and once again, without the perfect moment to pursue her dream. But this time, something inside Laura changed. She realized that if she continued waiting for the ideal conditions, she would never open her bakery. Determined not to let her dream die, Laura decided to start with what she could. She began selling her products online, using the recipes she learned from her grandmother. Sales started off slowly, but Laura persisted. She used social media to promote her work and began building a loyal customer base. From the online sales, she was able to save enough to rent a small space and open her bakery. It was a difficult process, full of ups and downs, but eventually Laura succeeded. Today, her bakery is a success, known for its delicious cakes and welcoming atmosphere. Additional reflection. Laura's story teaches us that the right time is now. Life will never be completely favorable, and if you wait for all the perfect conditions, you may end up waiting forever. Every moment that passes is an opportunity to act. Circumstances will never be ideal, but how we respond to them is what defines our success. The perfect moment is an illusion that prevents us from moving forward. When you decide to act, regardless of the circumstances, you put yourself on the path to achieving your dreams. I'm afraid of failure. Finally, we come to the last excuse. I'm afraid of failure. The fear of failure is perhaps the greatest enemy of our dreams. But what is failure if not an opportunity to learn and grow? Meet Carlos, a man with a dream of becoming an entrepreneur. Carlos always had innovative ideas, but the fear of failure paralyzed him. He saw stories of people failing in their ventures and imagined the same happening to him. The fear of failure was so strong that Carlos preferred to stay in a job he hated rather than risk everything on his own business. He thought about the consequences, the money he could lose, what others would think if he failed, and the possibility of never being able to recover. For years, Carlos suppressed his dreams. He watched other people start businesses, some failing, others succeeding, and wondered what might have happened if he had had the courage to try. One day, Carlos met a mentor, a successful businessman who had failed many times before finally achieving success. This mentor said something that changed Carlos's life forever. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of it. Every mistake you make is a lesson. If you don't fail, you don't learn. And if you don't learn, you never grow. These words resonated deeply with Carlos. He realized that if he wanted to achieve his dreams, he would have to face his fear of failure head-on. He decided that even if he failed, he would learn something valuable that would help him become a better entrepreneur. With this new mindset, Carlos finally made the decision to leave his job and start his own business. The first few months were tough, full of challenges and unexpected twists. Carlos made many mistakes, some of which almost made him give up. But with each mistake, he learned something new. He became more resilient, more adaptable, and more determined. Eventually, he found the right path, and his business began to thrive. Today, Carlos is a successful entrepreneur, but he never forgets the lessons he learned from his failures. Additional reflection. Carlos's story teaches us that the fear of failure is an illusion that prevents us from living fully. Failure is inevitable at some point, but it's also what teaches us to improve and grow. Don't let the fear of failure stop you from trying. Every failure is an opportunity to learn, to adjust your approach, and to get even closer to your goals. If you never try, you'll never know what's possible. Failure is part of the process, and accepting it as such is the first step towards success. These 5 excuses, not having time, not having resources, not being good enough, waiting for the right moment, and the fear of failure, are just that, excuses. They are barriers we create to justify our inaction. But the truth is, we all have the power to overcome them. When you decide to stop making excuses, that's when you truly begin to live. And you? Are you ready to stop making excuses and start taking action? Remember, the only thing standing between you and your dreams is yourself.